this is Agneiszka, and welcome to the rest of my March and April updates. This one will be mainly knitting and crochet, well, mostly knitting and crochet, as well as some books and some recent and not so recent haul. So I'll start off with crochet. Actually, this is my second time recording because the first time I did it and then realised my mic had been off the whole time. Anyway, so here we are. First up, we've got Coraline. This is the project I've been swatching for a while. There we go. And here are all my swatches. Probably not the best idea to wear pink while recording this, but that's where we are. So I started off with the 3mm crochet hook and swatching. So I got that, which was a little bit too dense. So I went up to the... Actually, it was a little bit too dense. So I tried doing the 4mm, and that was too loose, but not as loose as the other one had been dense. So I went down to 3.5, still too loose. And that had me scratching my head a little bit, because the difference between the 3 and the 3.5 was a lot bigger than the difference between the 3.5 and a 4. So I thought, well, it's been a couple of months, let's try the 3mm again. And this is where we got. Exactly the same as the first one. So that's the first one, that's the second one. And then I finally decided to try the 3.25mm hook, and basically got smack on gauge. So that's my little gauge swatch story. If only had gone straight up to the 3.25mm hook from the 3mm hook, I wouldn't have had to do all that. But live you learn, I guess. So this is where I'm up to so far. So I'm doing the middle size. There's my center of round there. There's my little yarn. There's my little yarn tail there. And so I've done the initial ribbing, or the crochet version of ribbing rather, for the neckline. Then I've done the short rows. So we've met up in the middle right there. So that's my hook there. It's a where is it? There we go. So it's an Atimo 3.25mm hook. And now it's time to do the bauble stitches. And the yarn I'm using is Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, so 70% cotton and 30% merino, and the colour is Strawberry Ice Cream. And I've been keeping this project in my Momo Textiles bag, so nice and rainbowy. And that's project number 1. Project number 2 is basically just an extension of my gauge swatch party. There we go. So this is where I'm up to so far. Sorry, there was a fourth one, I just don't know where it's gone to. My initial gauge swatch, I did both parts. So they ask for you to do this half double crochet stitch as well as a single crochet. But these I think are all the single crochet ones, because that's where you start off with. But again, not on gauge, still exploring my needle types. And these ones haven't been washed and blocked yet, so that's why I'm keeping them separately. There you go. There's my original swatches there. So this is the single crochet, and this is the half double, and these are on the cord for 2 sets of needles. And the yarn I've got, so this is Fluff and Nonsense. It's a platinum BFL sock, so 75% BFL and 25% nylon, and this is in Darkest Coffee. And the contrast colour, I've got this one, already wound into a ball, but it's Circus Tunic handmade, and the colour is Harmony. And this is technically a lunch bag, but it had cute turtles on it. Third is a project I don't think you guys have seen on this channel yet. So this is my Ariana cardigan by, I'll pop the name of the designer in the comments. So these are my 3 colours. I've got blue, orange and red, and these are the patterns 8-ply 100% superwash merino. I've got them in this Harry Potter cosmetic bag so I can take them to work with me. They're also a nice handy work project. And then my Focus I've been keeping in a Delicue train case. So I actually found both the pattern and this and this case on a blog by Knit Cheeks. So I was watching her Ariana Cardigan blog and I was like, oh, crochet and knitting in the same project. And then I saw how she kept hers and I was like, I need a case as well. So that's the inside of it. I haven't set it up as beautifully as she had. I think she had her swatch up the top here. But I've got my 2/4 and I'll get back to those in a second. And then so far I've done 20 of the full granny squares. So this is what they're looking like. I've done red for the center and the 3rd row, blue for the 2nd and the 5th, and orange for the 4th. So orange is the one I've used the least of so far. Then I think I've got a grey joining them all together. So going back to these being at work, I was running low on, I think, the red yarn. So I'd gone to the point where I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get another square out of it. So I did a quarter, had a little bit left over, decided to see whether I could do another quarter. And the answer was just barely. As in, I didn't even have to cut the yarn. That's how close I got. It was almost at the point I was considering tying one end of the tail to another bit of yarn just so I had a bit more room to grip it. But it worked out in the end. So that's the Ariana cardigan. I've actually got 3 on the go. So if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen all 3 sets of colours. This is the one I'm doing for my dad. Just snuck up a little bit on the priority list since I've finished Mum's socks. So I figured I'll just stick to doing squares for one at the moment. And last but not least, we've got my Batternberg blanket, which I still don't know how I'm going to show, even though I've technically done it once already. Yeah, this way. So I've done 2 whole rows. I started on the 3rd, which is on the other end. There we go. I started on the 3rd one. I've got stitch markers holding some of the squares in place, so I put a set of 31 on there so I could travel with it a little bit easier. So I can work on it at my computer, or I had an overnight trip a couple of weeks ago, so I could work on it during that. But that's where we are so far. Definitely less flimsy now that we've got the 2nd row in place. And have I weaved in any of my ends? Nope. So the blanket is by the Batternberg blanket by Sandra Paul. So she's CherryHeart on YouTube. And the coloured squares were from the Fangirl Fibres Pokemon The Final Countdown. So it's a 31-day countdown. And then these are my joining yarns. Got them in this bucket for, again, portability. Rosario 4-ply. So it was a rose gold. And then I've got a matching stellino in there as well. And that basket, however you like to call it, was another Easter clearance find. I think that's all the cross stitch. So we'll move on to knitting. And first up, we'll start off with the socks. And this is my vanilla sock on DPNs. So the pattern is by the CrazySockLady on YouTube. I've switched the needles around since last time. So I had these initially on Knit Pro Zing DPNs. So they were gold in the middle and then silver at the tips. But I was finding, I'm not sure whether it was the astigmatism or the double vision, but my eyes just couldn't focus on one or the other. So it kept flicking between the tips and the middle parts of it. And I couldn't even get through a round without getting a headache. So that was definitely a no-go. So I switched them out for the Chargos. Wasn't sure whether it was just the fact they were stainless steel DPNs or they were DPNs at all, or whether it was to dual colours, but they seem to be going okay so far. So I finished off the cuff. I did 20 round knit 1, purl 1, and then I've started on the leg. And there's the rest of the ball, which is Fiore's sock in the colour rainbow. Oops, I dropped my other sock on the floor. So this is my 2nd sock. This avocado is where you saw it last time. And now I've got a finished sock. So there's all my stitch markers there. You can probably see I've pinched one off the top. So I finished that first sock, actually while I was on the overnight trip I mentioned earlier. And then I've cast on the 2nd sock. just finished doing the cuff today because it was a bit tricky trying to do that at work. So now I've started on a bit of the leg and this will be much more smooth sailing. And last time I showed this to you guys, I actually lost a stitch, but thankfully we didn't have a repeat of that. And there's the rest of my yarn there. So it's Malabrigo sock, 100% superwash merino, and the color is Distress. And it's in a My Melody and Kuromi drawstring bag from Daiso. And I think this is my last project. So this one you guys know and love. This is my Shortcake sweater by Jaime Creates. She's an Australian knitwear designer. And I've got it on stitch holders because I wasn't sure how long I needed to make it. So I was running low on colours, decided let's just measure it just to be safe. Turned out I had quite a lot to go, so I didn't need to put it on stitch markers that early, stitch holders rather, that early. But I figured now that it's on, let me pick up and do one of the sleeves and then I can wet block it. But I have not picked up the sleeve yet, so this is where we are. And this is done in Skein Sisters Poet, which is a 10-ply yarn. So yep, so 70% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 10% silk. And this is Ritual, Romantic, and Speakersy. And I'm knitting these on 4mm. Oops. 4.5 meter. Yeah, can't talk today again either. 4.5mm lantern moon needles. So that's it for books. I'll just pick up my pile of books. Sorry, that's it for knitting. I'm just going to pick up the pile of books I left earlier here. And I guess we're going in reverse order. So these are the mangas I've read in the last couple of months. Got Twisted Wonderland. This is Book of Savannah Claw 1 and 2. And I started reading Twisted Wonderland last year while I was in Canberra. So I finished the first book then, the one that focused on Riddle. So this is the next book focusing on one of the other houses, but they've released them in a bit of a weird order. So they've done 1 and 2 of this one. That story is not finished, but they have started releasing the next one. So I'm waiting till they finish releasing this one's so I can finish the story and then continue on chronologically. And speaking of chronologically, Natsume's Book of Friends, I think it's the latest one that's out, so this is volume 31. And Persona 5, again, latest volume, this is volume 14. So I'm all caught up with those two. There we go. And then in terms of physical books, I've got How to Make Friends with the Dark by Kathleen Glasgow. So I'm all caught up with her books now. Probably not I think this is one of her earlier books, so I started with the newest and kind of worked my way backwards a little bit, unintentionally, but this is the last book I actually had my hands on. And then for my birthday, I had a voucher at Diamox and some points, so I picked these two up. I just think I paid about $10 for both of them, which is pretty good. And then I've got the gilded edges as well, because they weren't that much more expensive than the regular versions. So I've got Impossible Creatures. This is book 1. And then book 2 is The Poison King, and these are by Catherine Rundell. And book 3 is coming out later this year. So again, all caught up waiting for the third book. And this is the one I'm currently reading, or rather currently was reading but is now on hold. This is George Orwell, Visions of Dystopia. And you can see I haven't gotten very far into it. And I've got my bookmarker by Planners. I'll have to put the handle in the description. But this is by a Australian, I guess you'd call her a stationery maker. I usually get things for my A5 binders from her, so dividers and inserts and things like that, but she also does a lot of stickers and sticker kits, and I've recently picked up some bookmarks from her as well. So this is a cute little witch and ghosts. and pumpkins. The reason that one's on hold is the Goober readathon that I mentioned in the last video. So once that's done, I'll get back to that, but that's a pretty hefty book, I think, for a readathon. And last but not least, we've got haul. So I'll start off with the Stitchy Day we had. Colour Cascades, who's an Australian cross-stitch fabric dyer, held a get-together in Richmond this year. So it's not about an hour from where I live, and I managed to get the day off, which was really nice. So we had a fun Stitchy Day. I met a lot of new people, which was really exciting, and got to see Adelaide again too, which is great. And also picked up some haul. But before I even got there, Richmond was having a market right outside their train station, so that's where I picked up these 5 buddies over here. They're little finger puppets, and it was a 5 for something deal, so that's why I've got 5. But I figured the little frog in particular would come in handy. Did not stop me from actually having to frog on the day though, but we'll get into that in the next Stitchy update. And then, in terms of fabrics, so this one is 36 count smouldering iron. Didn't have a plan for this at the time. Sorry about the crinkles, but I just picked it up because it was a beautiful colour. You can see the pinks and the greys in there. I've since found a pattern on Etsy which I think is going to work for it. This one is 32 count Belfast linen in the colour Dark Fantasy. Basically just needed another nice deep blue after having used up my last one on the Ocean Cell. So that's that one. And then the only thing I had a plan for going in, which was a bit of a last minute plan, was that Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery has come out with its latest cell theme. So it's going to be circus, and they've shown the DMC colours as well. It actually went up on sale either this morning or yesterday morning, but it was like 3 in the morning when it was going to go up, so I was not waking up that early in the morning. But I saw the colours. There was night bright colours, lots of pinks and greens and blues, but they didn't really have much in purple. So I was thinking a purple fabric might work for it, and I was hoping to get something nicely mottled or just something crazy wild. I wound up going with this one. So it is 32 count Belfast linen again, and this is Artemis. And I've actually got it in the opalescent, so I don't know if it's going to pick up, especially with it still in the baggie. But it's got purples and blues and tiny bits of grey where they've kind of melted together, and some clearer patches as well. So I think this is crazy enough for a circus piece, while still, I think all the colours will still pop in it, but I'll have to gather my DMC and do a floss toss on that. And then last but not least, I've got a project bag. So I had to peek at all of the Halloween themed ones, but this is the one I went with in the end. The green skulls on the front and this little cutie on the back. Reminded me of the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland for some reason. And then I got a couple of beautiful Stitchy kindnesses while I was there as well. So this pack of 3 floss organisers from Adelaide Stitches. Her husband and her dad have been banding together to make these for her, and she's given me a beautiful set as well, which I think I'm going to probably put with my circus piece, or at least one of them, because it would be really nice to have all the, oops, just slipped through the cracks there, all of the things I got from the Colour Cascade Stitchy Days. It will be a lovely reminder. And then I got this beautiful needle minder from another person as well, which was also matched beautifully there. And this one's not from the Stitchy Day per se, but I stopped at Windsor as well, which is only a couple of stops before Richmond. And I picked up this postcard as well while I was just exploring the area in the river. So it's a bit of an old school map. So there's Hawkesbury River over there, there's Windsor over there, and there's Richmond, just at the heel of the boot. And then in terms of other hauls, this is the I think it was the Shadow Circle Seasonal Club from Ash and Eve Designs. So it came in this beautiful project bag. The mushrooms and flowers. And then it's 3 3 colours of yarn. So I've got this one, which is lichen branches. This one, which is fallen leaves. And this one, which is rustling leaves. And I got the 80% superwash merino, 10% nylon, and 10% cashmere. Now blends. And it came with a few extra things as well. So I've got a beautiful set of stitch markers there. Some cute little fox needle minders. And a lanolin lotion bar. And as I said, that's a seasonal club, so there'll be another 3 to go for this year. And then the rest of my haul lives in this butchered box. So I got 3 months of the Grumpy Ginger Yarn Co. Don't remember which month is which, but this is from Daffodil Road Yarns. This is their Bridal Bouquet sock set, and this is an 80-20 blend. I haven't decided with this one whether I'm going to make them for myself or for my dad, because these colours are right up his alley. And his feet are like mine, they always get cold in winter. And then I've got this one. This is Rainbows and Sprinkles. And this is their Luscious Sock Base, which is 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, which is not a blend I've used before. It's called Hip Hip Hooray, which it was pretty funny because this arrived around the time of my birthday as well. So yep, Rainbows and Sprinkles, and pretty sure this colour lives up to their name. And then lucky last, we've got a new to me yarn dyer. This is Great Southern Yarn, and this is their Winter Sunset sock set, which is... Oh, I know I read this during the last time I was filming this, but still surprises me. This is an 8 ply DK weight yarn, and it's a merino nylon blend, but it doesn't say how much merino or how much nylon. But the other interesting thing is this is non-superwash, so we'll see how that works out. We've got a cute little sheep stitch marker there, so that's going to be a adventure, I think. And then I've got 2 of the Woolen Woman yarn boxes. So this is the first one, Rainbows and Sprinkles. And I think I'm about a month behind with their shipping, just based on the CrazySockLady's reveals and when my parcels come. I think because it takes quite a while to get to us from overseas. But this is Woolen Women Fibres. This is their Stitches and Sprinkles colorway, which is an 80-20 blend. So a nice neutral color for the contrast, and then a beautiful mix of pinks and purples. Then we've got the candle, which is glazed donuts. A couple of leather tags. The stitch markers, which are a cup of tea and a donut. And the wool bar. And then the other one is this one. So this is their special A Happy Unbirthday box, and it's Alice in Wonderland themed, which I was so excited to hear about, because Alice in Wonderland is one of my favourites. And if I ever get around to showing you my cross-stitch finishes, you'll probably see why. And this is the yarn. We had 2 mini sets, so I've got the purple and the blue, and this gorgeous blend of colours. I don't even know where I'd start to describe it. It's also the 80-20 blend, and it's called A Very Merry Woolen Unbirthday. Oh, that was a mouthful. Here's the candle. It's a vanilla cake and sugar. It smells as bad as sweet as it sounds, to be honest. This is the Drink Me gauge ruler, however you like to call it. A lanolin bar. And stitch markers. So I've got the white rabbit and the Drink Me potion in there. And I think that's all my haul. Okay. So that's everything I got up to in March and April, aside from my diamond painting, which I'll show in a separate video. I'm not sure whether the next video will just be a May update or part of a May update, because these 2 updates have kind of blended into May anyway, or whether it's going to be my Goober Readathon books. They're on a pile next to me that keep on collapsing, but oops, that way, easier. There you go. This is where I've gotten up to so far, but we'll see how much more I can get done before the end of May. And that's it from me. Thank you everyone for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and a special thanks to Adelaide Stitches for shouting me out in her YouTube videos as well. I guess I'll go pack this precautious pile of things before anything else disappears on me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!